that you were throwing out there. Let's kick off the session. So just to welcome you, Natalie, to iMoot 2014. Natalie is going to be presenting about outcome sets and other gamification tools in Moodle. I hope you all enjoy her session. Thank you very much, Natalie.
Thanks, Penny. So welcome everybody. Natalie Denmeade is my name, and I live 4 hours north of Sydney in a coastal type area that's quite a beautiful valley called the Manning Valley, and I travel quite a bit for different conferences and work and enjoy these online connections when I can do it from home. I teach 2 or 3 days a week and am involved in e-learning the other days of the week doing content development or webinars or professional development. So I'm a bit of a developer and a teacher and a planner and an entrepreneur, so that's a different combination, but I like to mix it up, keep my week interesting. So today's session is about an upcoming feature of Moodle called Outcome Sets, which we were hoping to have released last week in 2.7, but unfortunately didn't make it, so now we're preparing for hopefully Moodle 2.8 in 6 months' time. So there's still an opportunity for you to contribute your ideas and needs while it's still coming along. There's some links that I'm going to refer to which are available from the iMoot Moodle course, which I hope you've got open in another window because that's the easiest way to get them. And when I copied and pasted them into this chat window, it did stuff up the links, but if you just select from HTTP onward, the link does work. And you're probably going to enjoy looking at them later on in your own time anyway. But just briefly as an overview of what I'll be covering is the Moodle for Motivation poster that I published last year that maps different tools within Moodle to game mechanics. And it also explains Bartle's player types about motivation and how people find different activities motivating and how, as learning designers, we can make most of what game designers have figured out by trial and error. There's a little survey there that I've put in a link where you can actually participate in my research and tell me what sort of assessment methods you enjoy and don't enjoy, and then which type of role you can relate to. And after you've done the survey, you can see what other people are saying, and you just might be surprised at the responses. There's a few hundred responses in there now, so it's getting to the point where the data is meaningful. So I'd encourage you to have a look at that link in your own time. There's a few examples of me playing around with this. There's a Moodle course that I created, which I'll briefly show you, and you're welcome to register, and it will take you about an hour to work through the course. It's an introduction to Moodle, but it's within a gamified setting where you're following an orange brick road and need to collect the letters M-O-O-D-L-E along your journey. And by the end of it, you're familiar with the basics of working within a Moodle environment. So my latest project is more than just a course. It's a whole Moodle site I've been playing around with, trying to make it more like a game and using the features of Bootstrap 3 to really push the limits of user interface design. So I'll hopefully get a chance to show you what I've been up to there. It is a work in progress, but it's coming along nicely. And there's final reference to the Outcome Sets prototype course, which you can log on to with those passwords provided to see exactly what the outcome sets look like. So that's hopefully what we'll cover. I would really appreciate your insights and actual practical experiences and questions and issues that you have along the way. So feel free to raise your hand at any point or turn the mic on. I don't mind being interrupted. It's better that we address your question at the right time, so feel free. But did anybody want to ask any particular questions before I move into the next section? So the Moodle for Motivation guide, it's available at that bit.ly link of MFM2013. And Dorothy's saying that she's had a look at it. If there's any other thing you'd like to say about it, Dorothy, basically the first page is the breakdown of Moodle tools, and the second page is a guide pretty much for Moodle administrators how to configure your site to make the most of gamification features that are built in Moodle. And I have done whole presentations on that, so feel free to go to my website, moodoo.com.au, and I speak about that in great detail. But I'd like to cover other things this session, so I haven't spent too much time. But just very quickly, Moodle player types are about why we do things. So if I said to you, I'll give you a Moodle motivation poster if you ask 2 questions during this presentation, or what questions do you have about gamification? I bet you can't ask me a question about gamification. I'd feel really sad if no one asked me questions. I'm trying to get you to ask questions, but you can see that I'm tapping into different motivations, and perhaps you could just quickly put an A, B, C or D in the chat pod as to which one of those statements would most likely motivate you, and you'll probably get a variety of letters coming up which shows that there's no right or wrong. I think quite often our ongoing debates about instructional design, instructional teaching versus constructionist approach, in the game world they recognise that both coexist and that different people respond to different methods, and that different teachers can only teach in a method that they're comfortable with and that works for them. We've got a few A, Bs and Cs, so I'll just explain. Bartle used terminologies of killers, explorers, achievers and socialisers, and broke down how he came up with that division. So I started applying this to the tools within Moodle and thinking which ones would I put in different sections. So I came up with what I thought happened, and I thought maybe I should make a survey and ask everybody. And I haven't redone this graph since last year, but I've been watching the responses, and it's pretty much still proving true. And it's pretty obvious, really, that socialisers are going to like any opportunity for interaction. Achievers prefer structure and direct advice that's clear. They want to get to the end goal very quickly. Explorers like the opportunity to be creative and expressive and explore different areas without being too hemmed in by restrictive instructions. And the killers want to win. If I've got the opportunity to beat another student, I'm in. So hopefully those tools will encourage our learners not to fear exam time, but to embrace it like they do their Xbox. And if you'd like to be inspired more along the lines of gamification, Jane McGonigal speaks about the hippocampus being measured through MRIs to show that when people are playing games in an active state as opposed to just watching somebody playing a game, the parts of their brain involved in long-term learning and changing behaviours are thoroughly active. So games are more than just an entertainment for us as humans, and she's got a lot to say on that subject. So for what we're trying to achieve with these Moodle tools that I'm highlighting is we want to keep people in the flow of not being too bored or too challenged. We want to build resilience by balancing their positive and negative emotions throughout the learning journey. We want to offer them a feeling of continuous progression. We want to give them clear goals, rules, feedbacks and choices. And we use our extrinsic motivations to build up intrinsic motivation. And when we do offer rewards, status and access, power and stuff in that order of what's proven to work for people. That was a very quick fly through on some basics of gamification. The other point I just wanted to reiterate was motivation, action, reward loops. Every time that you want somebody to do something, think about providing that loop of motivation, action and reward within your design. There's a lot of debate within the industry about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and that's worth researching. And particularly look at it from the point of view of intrinsic motivation, how we can offer people mastery, autonomy and relatedness in our designs. Because eventually people will stop responding to the bribes and the carrots that we're offering them, but hopefully by that point they've internalised the experience and realised that it's worth it. They'll maintain it from an intrinsic point of view is the goal. Yeah, I did the MOOC, I think 2 years ago now. I've really got it, thoroughly enjoyed it. That's what inspired me to make the Moodle poster. And then last year, Gabe Zickerman was in Sydney, so I went down and did an advanced workshop with him and some other game designers for the day. So now I've got the level 3 certification as a game designer, and I've been applying that framework as well. So these people have just got so much to offer us as learning designers. The course I'm about to show you is pretty much based on that. And there's some really cool Facebook groups. I talk to these guys all the time now on Facebook, and it's nice when you can share ideas and questions. So feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I've got my own group where I post things in relation to gamification, and I'm connected. Actually, the other person presenting at the same time as me is somebody who I met through this gamification network who was interested in Moodle. And they're doing a fantastic job with their Moodle site over there. And I said, why don't you come to iMoot and present? And he did, but he's on at the same time as me. So I'd encourage you to watch his session later if you're interested in gamification too. So I'm kind of at the end of that general overview of gamification. Would anybody like to ask any questions before I move on to some examples? Okay. So this first example that you're welcome to play for an hour is available on the Clever website. And I had a graphic artist from our Clever group come along and make these beautiful graphics. He's actually a children's book author. And I must say I was really surprised at what a difference it made having professional graphics. And if I ever had a budget for a course, it really inspired me to put more budget and time aside for the graphics. Games have a lot more money and time behind them than most of our courses, and I think that quality of the graphics makes the learner feel more positive and more confident that the course is worth doing when you've got nice graphics. The structure behind it heavily relies on conditional activities, so you don't get to level 2 until you've completed level 1, which means that there's not a lot visible on the screen at any given time, and that's something that I've noticed in games is it's very much what do I need to do now, and any information that's not needed is not on the screen. Apps are very similar. We're all moving into mobile devices and apps, and I think our brains are feeling relaxed about not being given so many menus and choices. So this new Moodle site that I've been configuring, I've been using the delete button a lot, and it hurts when you think, do I need breadcrumbs? And I think, well, web pages have always had breadcrumbs, and it's always the way we've done it. And then you go to the CSS and you choose display none and there's no breadcrumbs, and it starts looking a little bit more like a gaming page, and it just hurts to let go of those things that we feel are essential. There was a conference for Moodle developers involved mainly in the tertiary industry in Canberra last year in October, I think it was. So I submitted this course in that competition with other developers from Australia, and I was very, very happy to win the prize for the People's Choice Award, which was the top level award for technical, pedagogical and something else categories. And it meant a lot to me that at the highest level in our country that people are supporting gamification as a principle, and they were encouraging me as a researcher and a trial and error type person to continue down this road. So please enjoy that course. The next one, the Truth or Dare Moodle site, I'm going to jump into screen share and actually show you what I'm up to with this site. Last night, Carrie Vitti from New York did a session on simplifying Moodle with template design, and this is her Moodle site that she's kindly sharing with me, and some of the templates I've been referring to are actually on her site. Let me just move this over here. So you should be seeing a green coloured Moodle site any moment now. I've got double screens, so can somebody let me know? Yeah, you are seeing it, great. So this is a Bootstrap 3 based theme. Have we got any developers in the audience that are interested in my CSS comments and responsive design? Yep, good. So Bootstrap 2's been around for a while. Bootstrap 3 is just been released by Gareth as the shoehorn theme is what you're looking at. And I've really mucked around with it, and it's not getting there, so it can look better than this. But you can see that he's allowed for space down the bottom of the page for blocks, and I've moved these 4 blocks right up to the top of the page, and there's a slider in the middle. But what's great about this theme is it will work on a mobile, a tablet, and a large screen, and will reshuffle these blocks around. But more than that, you've got access to all of the Bootstrap CSS styling. So these buttons here, I've gone into the code and I've added, whenever I put in a hyperlink, as long as I put in the class BTN primary, any link that I put in, instead of just being a plain text link, becomes a button with a nice border and a hover effect. And over here you can see that I've changed the background colour to be my theme colour and changed the font. So I'm not that great at all CSS, it's not my full-time job, but I know enough to go in and start modifying these things, and I can change the padding slightly. So it's quick and it's well referenced if you Google Bootstrap 3 code. And Vinny, you're saying that iMoot cites Bootstrap 3 also. Great. So there's a few Moodle themes coming out now that are up to that next level. The icons that you can see in those top 4 boxes, they're all Bootstrap 3 icons. The syntax was slightly different to Bootstrap 2, but it didn't take me too long to find out that was what I need to put in, is glyph icon hyphen name. So any of those icons will work. So the workflow that I'm imagining here is that the person will click on the start button, and I really like spending some time with onboarding. The whole idea of that yellow follow the orange brick road course was to get people comfortable in the Moodle environment. So I spend some time getting people setting up their profile, trying to encourage them that they'll get a secret code by email if they do this to motivate them, and putting in hyperlinks to different places, offering bonus points if they go to the trouble of making their own avatar. And this is another little thing I've been working on that I finally got a developer to put into practice. It is checking my system and telling me if I'm going to have problems down the line with pop-ups, cookies, or Adobe Reader, and if my browser is successful. So that's getting some of the problems with e-learning out of the way. And Clever is actually offering this system checker to other organisations, so feel free to contact them if you'd like to use this. You can embed it as an iframe or a pop-up window, but probably have to make that a bit smaller because it's taking up quite a bit of the page. And the beauty of using a feedback is that after people answer the questions, you get to put in a URL of where they go once they complete it. And I won't do that now because it will take too much time, but as a designer of your site, you're now introducing people into Moodle as if they were visitors to be treated with hospitality and kindness and gentleness until they're more comfortable with the environment. So I'll jump straight into the course now. Trying to use bigger graphics, making it more like a game as much as I can, and using plugins like the progress bar to give people navigation and a sense of feedback of what they've achieved. So if the person hadn't completed that, they could click and it would take them straight to that activity and they'd know that it wasn't completed yet. On that first page, while I'm here, encouraging people to contribute user-generated content. So I'm using a database here and I'm asking people to add resources. The topic for this course is Moodle theming, and it's going to be a real course. So if you'd like to register for this site, and I'll invite you to become part of this course on the 1st of June when I start to run it. So you can add an entry that says what resource you're recommending, what category it goes into, and then rate categories as you go as a way of people building up content for the course. I'm offering badges. Pretty proud I got a mojito badge today. Thanks, Vinny. That was pretty cool. Never thought I'd get a mojito badge. Got quite a few badges at iMoot. Has anybody else got any badges yet? So the 2 badges that I'm offering are silver and gold. And you can see, if you can see what I'm highlighting, that you're not allowed to go into the master levels or the mentor levels until you've got a certain score in a category total. And this is the part that's doing my head in, is trying to figure out how to make all of this work. So I didn't quite get it all ready for today, but so far what I've got is a rather simplified grade book. I'll just switch to a user report. So the way I'm setting it up is I'm using a custom scale of stars that give you reputation points. So if you upload resources into that database and other people rate your resources, you collect points each time, and that becomes your reputation point within the system. And at the other levels, observer level, master level, and mentor level, I'm still fighting with the aggregation modes to get them to represent accurately. But what I'm after is that at any point in time, you're either one of those levels. And I'm going to use CSS to take all of those old-fashioned boxes and colours out of the gradebook, and hopefully apply some of the nice bootstrap type theming to make it look a bit more modern and simpler and not as cluttered as it looks at the moment. I'm also using the blog up here to record people's activities, and I'm going to connect it to an external blog, Google, and see how that works for people tagging their entries and get a bit more of the social side happening to the design of this site. I've used custom letters that, as well as custom scales to make the gradebook seem more like a gaming area. This was one thing I wanted to show you. This is a Bootstrap 3 code. And if I go down here, I'll show you what that looks like. This can be used anywhere within your page layout. And it's, if you can see there, the href is to hash my modal, and then you create a div with the ID of my modal, and you put your content inside that div as you would type any normal text, and it becomes a nice little button with a pop-up window. So I'm going to be putting a lot of hints in my course where I'll be asking you to do something, and if you want to try it yourself or figure it out, you're welcome. And if you want the hint, then you click on the button and you'll get more text available. And getting back to the explorers and the achievers, the explorers want less instruction and let me figure it out. So they've got the simple, clean interface that they can explore, but the hint button is there for the achievers who just want to be told. I'm just reading back through the comments. Somebody's got mint in the garden. Oh, I don't know if I want a real mojito. It's winter here and I've got a cold at the moment. I think I'm settling for a virtual one. So before I move on from here, did you want to ask anything else about this interface? And is anybody interested in joining a community here where we can share resources and tips and have some training sessions on how best to make the most of these Bootstrap 3 themes that are becoming available? Yeah, so email me at natalie@muju.com.au, or just actually go to this website and register, and then I'll have your contact details. And I look forward to seeing your Lego avatars. And remember, you'll get double points if you actually do it. Haven't figured out how to actually give you double points, but I'm sure I'll find a way somehow to do it. What's that, Vinny? What do you mean? Okay, the motorcade, yeah. So the button where I clicked on tutorial and it popped open, you can add those within the... You know, I did try that in this theme and it didn't work, because I originally wanted that button over here up under home, and the modal window popped up, but then I was stuck in that window and I couldn't see. It kind of went grey and blocked me, but the box didn't actually show and I couldn't close it, so I had to shut the whole window. And then when I tried it in the normal HTML area over here, it did work, so I'm not too sure what the difference was. Yeah, I didn't know if this theme was going to support it or not, so I just kept on trying, and mostly it did work for me, but that's the best way to go, is just try it. I haven't tried the accordions and the table formatting yet. Do you think they'll work, Vinny? Yeah, I've been using Essential Theme on a few other sites, and it's and Elegance, they are fantastic for getting all of this Bootstrap to work. Are they Bootstrap 2 or 3 now, Vinny? Elegance and Essential. Elegance is 3. It's Essential 2 and Elegance 3. Then you'll need to log out as guest, and then you can log in and choose the Create Account button, I think will work. Okay, now I just wanted to jump into the next section on outcome sets. So I've spent a lot of time in the gradebook, and Dorothy's going to get my frustrations here, trying to match it to the VET system in Australia, where a lot of our courses are pass-fail competency, and then we have these other courses where you can get graded with credits and distinctions, and I tried very hard to force the Moodle gradebook to do that, and I didn't find a perfect answer, because our system really isn't mathematically logical, is what I came to. But in the meantime, I got very familiar with all sorts of things in the gradebook, and I tried outcomes because that seemed to me to match our system perfectly. At the beginning, before the official start of this, I explained how we work with a national qualification system that has units within qualifications, and then within each unit there's 3 or 4 elements, and within those there's performance criteria. So the concept of outcomes matches that really well in theory, but in practice, when I went into the gradebook and tried it, it just didn't work for me, and when I did implement it, there were so many outcomes that it was very repetitious and wouldn't be meaningful to a student looking at it. So after that, people started talking about outcomes being revised. I think it was Moodle Room. Excuse me, I just need a drink. So can I just ask, has anybody here been to Moodle Docs and read the specs around outcomes and been reading the conversations going on over the last year or so about this? A little bit. There's been a lot of conversation about it, and I think the delay in outcomes being released reflects the complexity involved in it. And I've realised one of the differences in the game-based approach and our approach in the way that we've implemented our Moodle courses is we work from a qualification perspective. We try to shove a Cert 4 in digital media, which is 300 hours worth of study, into one Moodle course. And it's obviously hard to navigate and complex. Whereas a Lego Star Wars game, you're only doing one thing at a time. The interface that you're dealing with is very granular. And I'm trying to reverse my approach now and work from a performance criteria starting point. So I want you to do X. And with my units, there's a lot of repetition. So different performance criteria in different units are asking for the same thing. And we're boring our students with the same paperwork. The amount of paperwork that we're giving them is totally overwhelming them. So I like the concept of saying, well, here's an outcome set that says you need to achieve X, Y, Z, and I'm going to map items within my course against those outcomes. So this course that I'm looking at now might be familiar to some of you from the Mount Orange demo. And what's different is on the left here under course administration, there's a link to outcomes. Now each one of you can log into this course using either the manager or the student login. On the front page there's some details about it. They've kindly put in a few outcome sets for us to have a look at. The native bush one from New Zealand is quite interesting to see. So I'm going to click on this link that says, within this course that I've designed, which items are not yet associated with any performance. So if I go to this reading here called Water at Home, and I say, well, if you've done this, then it maps to this particular outcome. When I say outcome set, it's the same as groups and groupings in that outcomes are being grouped together into outcome sets. So when I start a course, I'll be saying this course will call on outcomes from this set or possibly two different sets. So right now it's saying which outcome set do you want to look at? And I'm going to say that if they do this reading, and I'm not doing this seriously, it maps to these particular outcomes. And coming from technology background, it is so frustrating seeing institutes solve huge data problems with Microsoft Word, copying and pasting out of one database from a website into a Word document that gets excuse me, version control issues. So to see a real database working properly and pulling this data up out of the database and being reused without copying and pasted is going to be a lot more accurate. So now this particular activity will now be mapped against those outcomes that I selected. And hopefully you'll be able to pull up a report that says that this student has met these outcomes. And what I'm hoping is that it gives us the flexibility to say that if you've already met this outcome through this way, that you don't have to do it again simply because our technology isn't smart enough to know that you've already done that. So what do you think of your application of outcome sets in your organisations? There will be quite a lot of work in implementing it, I agree, because it's really replanning everything. I'll just show you some of these other reports in here. So at the moment, the way that I do this is a Word document with a table. And other people can't access it quickly. We call it a unit mapping guide. But now it's done within the Moodle course that you can see that this outcome is being met by that activity. If there's no resources, activities or questions mapping back to that outcome, then you need to add something to your Moodle course. So I think this gives managers a really powerful tool, and this data can be downloaded. So the teacher can use the Moodle course as the starting point. They can say, I'm going to upload my resources here, I'm going to map it to my outcomes, and then I'm going to give my head teacher this report that shows that I'm complying with the standards. And filtering it down will give you quite granular level reports. Sorry, my voice is really bad. I've had a cold the last few days, and typical when you've got a lot of webinars, that happens. It's not the audio playing up, it's a frog in my throat. And also you can get some statistics here on the completion of different students and the average grade. So from a management point of view, what I'm seeing here is Richard's making a Lego avatar. I like it. So what I would be doing as a manager is I'd be finding the outcomes that students and teachers are generally struggling with and investing more resources into gamifying those situations, because you're getting more feedback on what's working and what's not. It's more of a user-based approach than a qualification-based approach, and what I want is a site-wide system so that I'm not shoving a qualification into one Moodle course. So when teaching digital media, I ask you to make storyboards, and there's a unit called making storyboards, but in every single thing that you do in websites, in game design, in video production, you're always making storyboards. And I know that the students are competent in it already, and yet quite often I'm asking them to do the same assessment again in a different method. And I'd love Moodle to be able to say to me, yes, they've passed that storyboarding skill, and here's the evidence for it, and you can reuse that in a different context. Then I'll just try to find you the link for that. Should do it. So if you click on create new account in that window. Yeah, so you're welcome to muck around in the course, but it's really not anywhere near ready for using. The site that I was just showing you, the prototype site, has a forum there where you're welcome to join in this debate on what we need as educators in outcome sets, and hopefully I've inspired you to have a play on that site. You can import your own national standards if you've got them in CSV format or any of the other formats. On Moodle.org there's some other sample files that you can import yourself to see how it works. Dorothy, do you know how to access our standards in a CSV file? I know we've got a website, training.gov.au, but do you know if we can access an XML or CSV version of that? And is anybody here from the United States? Harry and I have been speaking about this, and just jump back over here. And she's quite interested because they've gone through, they call it Common Core, and she can see that this will really apply to their situation. Yeah, if you might have the connections to find out for me, Dorothy. I'm sure it is available because it's public data. I just don't. I have looked quite a lot and I can't find where to get that file from. So what I want to do is I want to get that huge XML file that will have every single qualification, every single unit, every single element, and every single performance criteria. I'll probably any type of capability framework. Is that the core skills for work framework that you're referring to? So we are finding a lot of our top level governments are issuing these frameworks. So we need to import them into Moodle at a site level. And then we need to design courses at a small enough level to be able to call on those outcome sets. Okay, if it is the core skills framework, it's very clearly defined in communication skills, digital skills, general workplace type skills. And as soon as I saw that as a rubric, I thought, that would work really well as an outcome set for us to map activities against. I did try doing all of this with I was funded by the National their e-learning strategy to play, which was very nice to explore these good ideas of gamification, and I made a treasure map that in Construct 2 that's HTML5, and as you select on each of these icons, you collect a totem as you go through the river, and you end up being a paparazzi level of photography, and the badge that you earn is displayed on your Facebook wall, so it ended up being a good advertisement for other people to come and join our course. And I did upload that entire course into Carrie's iMoot Moodle course. So if you look at hers course about sharing templates, it's 165 megabytes, but there's a lot of lovely content in there from the Adobe Youth Program and some of my content as well. And down here where it says real world technology, that's a SCORM object I designed based on Google Apps for education or business, and it takes you through how to use spreadsheets and Word documents. It does have an Indigenous perspective, but it's all pure HTML. You could easily strip out content that was cultural and reuse any of that. And because it was all funded, it's Creative Commons for sharing, so feel free to grab all those resources. And if you look at the gradebook, you'll see that I've set up perfectly working competent grading, where you get graded satisfactory or excellent or good. And I've also played around with rubrics. I'll see if I can zoom in a bit here. It took me quite a while to get the maths right behind this, but it does work that you get a score out of 40. And I'm giving you the opportunity to prove to me that you know this by either asking me to observe you, asking me to listen to you explain it. You can write it down and I'll read it, or I can look at a portfolio. That gives people, one of the key factors of game design is the voluntary aspect of games, and in education we get a lot of our rebellion and our resistance because we impose so many boundaries and restrictions. And I like a rubric because it says clearly what you have to do and how many points each one of those can achieve, but it still gives you the flexibility of how you're going to provide that evidence. I don't know how outcome sets will work with rubrics and other methods. I'll have another look at that prototype site to check it out. But I think in the end we're going to end up with much better quality grading and assessment that will give learners quicker feedback that we haven't always been able to do with the older technologies that we've had. So somebody's put in here a great site for creating a Lego character, another one. Fantastic. I'll add that into the course. So who was it trying to log into the course? Lynn, did you get logged in, registered on the site? Great. So as long as I've got your details in there, I'll keep in touch. And as soon as I can get outcomes, there is a beta version that Sam's put out there, but I can't upgrade it to 2.7 because he forked it a while back and it's not compatible. And I have asked him if he'll try to integrate it with this latest release of Moodle 2.7, and then we might be able to play it around with that. So thank you very much for showing your interest in this topic. I hope that I have been informative for you and inspiring you to explore these deeper features of Moodle that provide a better learning experience for people. Dorothy, yes, I would agree. It is quite slow to set up rubrics. I'm not really a fan of templates, as you'll hear if you listen to Carrie's recording. But when I did get the gradebook working the way I want, that's when I thought this is really worth saving as a template and sharing with other teachers. It's not going to affect their creativity, and it's not going to slow them down, and it's not going to intimidate them. It's just going to say, okay, this is our institute, this is how we grade, and it's all set up for you now. Add content. So I think it'd be worth paying an expert to do that and sharing that as a template. I should cough right now as a hint that I could be one of those experts, but if I started coughing, I wouldn't stop. Thank you.
From the iMoot team, I was just going to jump in again and say thank you ever so much for a great presentation. I think you kind of battled a little bit towards the end with your sore throat. So maybe if anybody's got any more questions for Natalie, we could turn it over to the forums or the text chat, and rest your voice. And I look forward to seeing you around over the rest of the iMoot.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.